We have a major Nick Robertson update as multiple reports have come out revealing some new information surrounding Nick Robertson and what the Maple Leafs plans are going forward for him. We're going to break that down and discuss what it can mean for the Leafs going forward as the season inches closer and closer. And quite frankly, this decision is becoming a bit of a problem for the Toronto Maple Leafs. We'll break all it down in this episode. But before I do, if you're part of the 70 or so percent who aren't subscribed to the channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button. It would mean the world to Darius and myself, and it is free. So thank you guys for your continued support as we're on the road to 12,000 subscribers. But Darius, we have two new reports coming out today from different reporters, and we got some more information on the Nick Robertson front. Now, obviously, the season, again, is inching closer and closer, about a month away from opening night against the Montreal Canadiens. And the Nick Robertson situation has still yet to be decided. And a new report came out today revealing some interesting information. So let's dive right into the first report, which is that Nick Robertson believes in the idea of getting traded so he can receive more consistent top six playing time, including special teams. However, only weaker teams would be able to meet this need. But even those bad teams likely already have their top six planned out. There are only maybe a couple teams in the NHL that can offer him that position. Now, a lot of Leafs fans out there are a little bit not fed up, but they're getting a little bit riled up about this report about what Nick Robertson actually wants, because this doesn't really make a lot of sense. The Toronto Maple Leafs offer him the best chance to be a good player, to get him that next contract that will earn him a lot of money. So it's a bit confusing here, but what are your thoughts on this this new report that came out before we're going to do another one that gives some more information on the Leafs?
Yeah, like you said, a lot of fans are fired up about this information that came out and this whole situation because at the end of the day, it is a distraction, right? But I'm not as fired up about this information because most of this makes sense. He wants to play in the top six. He wants more minutes. He wants to play on the special teams. It all makes sense. But I'm more fired up about the second report we're going to get into, right? And I think my opinion is starting to change on the situation based on this new information. But anyway, it does make sense that he wants to play in a top six role. I think he can be a top six player in this league if he cleans up some stuff, right? And I think he can be a top six player, especially now on the Toronto Maple Leafs, especially with their left wing situation. But sounds like, that might not be the case. And if you were to go anywhere else, like mentioned in that tweet, and Mike Johnson said, there are hardly any teams that can take him on at this point that he can play in their top six, especially if they're a contending team. And the worst teams around the league, like the San Jose's and the Chicago's, they already know what they're doing with their lineup at this point. So Robertson's really pinned himself into a situation here where, he can't really be traded for what he wants to be able to do on another team. And he doesn't want to sign with the Leafs. It's just really odd. I can't believe we're still here in this situation, but yeah, I think, like I mentioned before, Chicago would be an interesting trade partner for him. But at this point, it looks like they have their top six figured out. So I don't know what the end game is here for the player. At least I'm not sure what he thinks is going to happen, because again, if there was a trade that happened earlier in, maybe last year, or if there's a trade that happened earlier in the offseason, maybe he could have fit into another team's plans. But that's not in the best interest of the Toronto Maple Leafs anyway. And it doesn't look like that's going to happen.
Yeah, it's at the point now where, like you mentioned, we're so far into the offseason, we're almost out of the offseason, that most teams, even those teams that are in the bottom half of the league that could maybe have made a smart trade for Nick Robertson, like we suggested, Blackhawks being the bigger one, they're starting to, whether or not they reached out to the Leafs, they probably have, but they're starting to go in a different direction because the sides couldn't agree on a trade, and now they're starting to fill out the rest of their lineup. So it's getting a little bit interesting, and quite frankly, I mean, this report makes sense, but it's not ideal for either side, I don't think. And it's probably even less ideal for Nick Robertson if he goes into the season without a contract. And you can see this here. I can't find an NHL team with a player in their top six worse than Nick Robertson. And if there is, it's a top five pick they have to play this season, like Chicago was last season, or like Chicago was. Maybe they need a sniper. Probably not. Who is he taking out of this lineup? And of course, they're looking at the Blackhawks lineup and a couple of guys, a former Maple Leaf, Tyler Bertuzzi, Taylor Hall, someone we've looked into as a potential trade partner for the Leafs. Like any of these guys, and we're looking at even the Blackhawks, any of these teams, they would need to subtract someone to fit someone into their top six like Nick Robertson. And in that case, I don't know if it makes sense for either team unless you're in a bit of a retool and trying to and you're playing on the ceiling of Nick Robertson rather than his immediate impact there.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. And like you brought up there with the Chicago Blackhawks lineup, if you look around the league, right, like mentioned in that screenshot, if you look at even San Jose, they have younger players that they'd rather play in their top six at this point, right? Like it's not that nobody wants Nick Robertson, but for what he's demanding here in this trade, where, his destination, even though he has no say in this, there's no leverage. It's a really odd situation. I don't know where he fits in on almost any team now, right? Like he might have to go somewhere and play on a third line. Now, there is a trade scenario that we will get to in a video at a later date that I do like with the Anaheim Ducks. That's as far as I'll go in saying that I think could actually happen and would be in the best interest of the Leafs to help them this season and in the playoffs. So there is a couple options, but does he want to go to Anaheim? That's the other thing, because it sounds like he's demanding all these things all of a sudden, right? Even though he has no leverage, he wants to go to a specific team and play in a specific line. It's just an odd situation, and it's tough for the Leafs too, because you don't want to give up this player. I feel like they still think that this player can fit into their plans, right? But at this point, and like we're about to get to with this next report, I don't think that's something that can happen anymore, and they might have to move off this player. And it kind of is unfortunate because the situation they're in right now, you're not going to get much for him.
Yeah, and let's dive right into that report. And it is from Chris Johnson today. He said he doesn't want to be a Leaf. He still does not want to be a Toronto Maple Leafs. That just happened. So he does not want to be a Maple Leaf. So if there's any new info this week, it's that, surprise, surprise, Nick Robertson does not want to be a Maple Leaf. And that's obviously coinciding with the new report that just came out that we just covered, saying that he wants to find somewhere where he can play in the top 6 role. Darius, this one you said has you fired up a little bit. Obviously, at this point, it seems like he just is not going to be a Toronto Maple Leaf to start the season. And we can look into what the lines are going to look like without him, of course. I mean, we know he's a very solid player, 27 points, 56 games. You were high on him for a while. At this point, it seems inevitable that, I mean, he'll probably get traded. It might be for pennies in the dollar, but at this point, I hope the Leafs just maybe hold out and see if they can get something better, see what will happen if they don't sign him, because such a weird situation. But I think the sale of him starting with the Toronto Maple Leafs next year, or next year in a month, are very, very low.
I think this new information has changed my mind on the situation a little bit, because, I see all the comments and everybody saying if he doesn't want to play for the Leafs, then we don't want him here anyway. And my mindset on it was, this is a player who feels like he should be playing higher up in the lineup, and he believes in himself, right? And I kind of like that mindset to a certain degree. And he was going to the Maple Leafs and saying, I don't want to sign because I'd rather go somewhere else where I'll get a better opportunity. And the Leafs were saying, hey, listen, if you come to camp, you'll get a better opportunity. And I thought they were going to come to an agreement, probably closer to the training camp anyway. And he would, kind of figure, okay, I got to play. I got to get on the ice and do something here. I don't want to waste the season away. But the fact that this has come out now, and I'm not saying he said this directly, it probably came from his camp in some way, that he does not want to be a Maple Leaf. If you don't want to be a Maple Leaf, then don't play for the Toronto Maple Leafs, right? Then this might be over. If you don't want to be here, I'm not sure why Brad Treliving wants to waste some time kind of negotiating with that or begging him to play. If he really does not want to be a Maple Leaf at the end of the day, if it has nothing to do with, where he is in the lineup, he wants to play higher up in the lineup, just not with the Maple Leafs, then you have to look for a trade. You have to move this player, because, the Leafs, their ultimate goal this season, the next couple seasons, they have a window of about 3 years here, is to win a Stanley Cup. And if he does not, want to do that, he doesn't want to play for the Leafs, then he doesn't align with their goal and he shouldn't be playing for the team. And that's kind of where my mindset has changed on that.
Yeah, he does not want to be a Leaf, so probably won't be to start the season, just in a few short weeks here. And you look at the lineup, how it matches up again. This isn't the one that's set in stone. We're going to be covering this as the season gets closer and closer. But the point of this is start to get used to seeing lineups without Nick Robertson, because that's what the future seems like is all but inevitable at this point. But let us know in the comments what your thoughts are on this. What are your thoughts on the new Nick Robertson reports? And what is your current stance on the Nick Robertson situation? Do you want to see the Leafs hold out? Do you want to see them keep him? What do you want to see? Let us know in the comments. See you soon.